Today's homily is for the 26th Sunday in Ordinary Time. Today's Gospel returns to the same theme that Jesus talked about last Sunday, wealth and poverty. In the Gospel today, there's a man named Lazarus. And this is not the same Lazarus as the one that Jesus raised from the dead. The name Lazarus means God helps. Jesus uses a story, a parable, to teach a deep meaning about our relationship with money and with our neighbors. Jesus wants us to do something for the poor and not to get to our judgment day and regret our lack of concern for others, for then it will be too late, as we learn in the parable. Jesus addresses this story to the Pharisees, and they were one of the religious groups in Jesus' day. There were also the Sadducees, who tended to be wealthy, and they did not believe in a resurrection from the dead. There were also the Essenes. They were a Jewish group who thought that city life was so corrupt. The only place to live was out in the desert in community. And there were Zealots. They were revolutionary Jews who believed in taking arms against the Romans and drive them out of Israel, for the Romans had been occupying Israel. And of course, there were the poor. Jesus addresses this story to the Pharisees, who had the idea that God blessed the rich and condemned the poor due to some sinfulness they had committed. And since they believed in the resurrection of the dead, Jesus presents the consequences of not caring for the poor in one's lifetime. The rich man is now suffering, and the poor man, Lazarus, is in heaven with Abraham. In his lifetime, the rich man seemed not to care that Lazarus was sitting outside his gate, hoping for some food or tender loving care. And it seems that the rich man is condemned not for what he did, but for what he failed to do. He did not show any concern for the poor. Notice that in this world, the rich man is on the inside, enjoying life, and the poor man, Lazarus, is sitting outside by the gate. Now that judgment has been passed, the rich man is on the outside, suffering, and Lazarus is on the inside, in heaven, with Father Abraham. This reversal of roles would have been shocking to the Pharisees, for they would not have seen that the rich man did anything to deserve such a condemnation. In fact, they would have seen him as being blessed because he had material wealth, which was a sign of God's goodness to him. The lack of charity by the rich man towards the poor is not with God's blessing. That is the whole point of the parable. Jesus shows that God is a God of justice. He embraces all people who do good, and he condemns all who do bad. And what I fail to do is in the category of deserving punishment. How often do we pray in the Mass and ask forgiveness for what I failed to do? Notice the rich man's response. He is so locked into a way of seeing life as to only be concerned about himself and his family. Others are of no concern to him. Certainly not the least in God's family, the poor. Does Jesus call for a revolution, destroy the rich, and replace them with the poor? No, Jesus calls for a transformation of the hearts of all. We know that from history there have been many revolutions. But what has happened is the rich get killed off, and they are replaced with new people who themselves get rich and end up treating the poor in the same way. Why? Because there was no transformation of heart, just a change of places. Yet it tends to be the poor who saw the revolutionaries as helping them. In the end, they remain as poor as before. Now that I am rich, I start to act like the rich whom I replaced. A society can only be built on justice. First, let us change our actions and our hearts, and then society will change. Not just changing places. New rich taking the place of old rich. Jesus wants us to act in a new way towards the poor and the needy we see every day. This is what the reading from Amos is about. The rich were concerned with sacrifice and not with the people in need. The rich man in the gospel missed an opportunity. Let us not miss the opportunity to live the love that Jesus teaches us today and every day, and so we never have to say, "For what I failed to do."